Please note, girl dads are not to be messed with, ever.
Okay, welcome back to Dad Space, the podcast for dads by dads. Now, I love when I get to meet people on my other shows. I've had this guest on my author podcast. She's an amazing book. And in talking to her, I'm like, wait, you got to come talk to the dads that listen to Dad Space, because there are dads that feel like there's no one there for them in this moment. They are dealing with something where their children are needing special help. They're special kids and they need something extra. And in this moment, you feel inadequate. You don't feel like you know what you're doing. You don't how to do this. You don't know who else around you has walked this path. Jennifer's walked this path. And she's here to help you. And she's got a great book, a great story. We'll get into all of that. But if you are a parent with your child's on the spectrum and you are looking for a resource, you just found an amazing human being to help you on your journey. So Jennifer, welcome to Dad Space.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. Let's start off at the beginning, because we talked about you on Living in Next Chapter. Let's talk about the book right off the top. The name of your book, what's it about? Who's it for? Give me the big idea for the listener that's listening for the first time.
Yeah, my book is called Watching Sarah Rise, A Journey of Thriving with Autism. It is about my parenting journey with Sarah, who's my oldest I have two kids. My youngest is neurotypical, and that's been interesting to have the youngest actually be assuming the role of the oldest. And the oldest is kind of the youngest developmentally. They sort of swapped. So I always think that they are each both the youngest and the oldest in the family. And so the book is really like starting early days of Sarah being born and the struggles, the sort of like, wait, what's happening? Why is my baby different from my friends' babies? What is going on? Doctor's appointments, stress about her eating enough, trying to get her to eat, trying to get her to do tummy time when that was not at all what she wanted to do. And getting all the therapists coming to the house. And then things did start to come together. And then I decided to run a sunrise program for her. So I basically did a huge overhaul of our life. I learned to run the program, how to interact with her more effectively than I had been, how to follow her interests, follow her lead, but still go towards language and social connection and encouraging her eye contact, and how to find volunteers to help me with this venture. So it wasn't just me and my own thinking and creativity, but we had a whole team, which was probably the most amazing thing I've ever done with my life, sort of even just as a witness, to see all these people coming and bringing their love and their time and their thoughtfulness to my family was almost overwhelming to accept. And it was phenomenal to see how much Sarah changed through that process, that she went from being nonverbal to talking a blue streak, where now we have to remind her when it's appropriate to be quiet. And she learned to use the toilet and eat healthily, whereas in the early days of struggle around her food, I was giving her ice cream anytime because ice cream is really good for calories. And I was telling myself, oh, it's fluid. That counts as something. It's calcium. And so the book is really about our journey in a lot of specifics of how did I play with Sarah? How did she change? And also, how did I move through my hard moments where I was really very hard on myself as a parent, or feeling very hopeless, or crying in my kitchen, or cursing in my kitchen of how do I do this with a kid who doesn't fit any of the books that say, what to expect when your baby is blah. And none of that. And finding that support for myself, which I still need to find support for myself and still go beyond just my own self. I have a lot of people that I talk to, and some of them are other parents and some are specialists. Some are specialists and parents, talking to my husband, writing, talking to my mom, putting notes up for myself around the house, all of that. And I wanted to write about it to reach out almost to the past me when I was feeling so alone and desperate and crying in my kitchen, to say, hey, it's okay. You're not alone. and you don't have to be perfect, but you can make some small changes that might really, really help your kid in a big way.
Wow. Okay. What is the age difference between Sarah and Amy?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. So at what point did you see Amy kind of catching up developmentally with Sarah? And you're like, wait, there's like that switch was beginning to happen where Amy was developing and I'm really curious about the relationship between the two of them at that point. But when did you kind of see that development stage starting to switch between the two of them?
I'm guessing it was probably even around kindergarten.
Really? Okay.
Sarah did many, many years of preschool. We really did things differently than the traditional path. When she was 3, she started preschool through the public school system to continue getting the early intervention therapies. And then when she was about to start kindergarten, that's when I actually pulled her out of school to run the Sunrise program, which I called Sarah Rise for her. But not long after doing that and basically running a full-time program for her, like sometimes 30 hours a week of one-on-one attentive playtime, I found a preschool that was just mornings and was really flexible. So she could go for 3 hours a couple mornings a week with me or my sister-in-law as her helper, so that we were basically doing preschool in the same spirit of this program. And she did that for a few years, just building up how many mornings she did that. And then she was 8 when she started half-day kindergarten. So we really were changing things. And then when she started back, when I thought, okay, it's time for her to go to regular school again, still in a specialized program, but joining the mainstream when possible, full-day school, she was 9 going into first grade. And Amy was going into kindergarten that year. So for a long time, they were just one grade different.
Wow.
We then later hopped Sarah forward a couple years because we realized, she will age out of being able to access the program that we wanted her to be in, which goes through 2 years of post-secondary school at a college. And so right now, Sarah's a senior and Amy's a freshman. So they used to be just 1 year or 1 grade level apart, and now they are farther apart, but still not quite as far apart as the 4 years.
Okay. Talk a little bit about how the parenting differs for your two girls, because you start with Sarah, Amy comes along. I know I've got 3 kids, and just the fact that I have 3 kids, all my kids are different. Like what worked for the first one rarely works for the other one. So you kind of have to parent differently for all 3, for me, from all 3 of my kids anyway. But for you, it's very unique on how you need to parent these two. What did you abandon for Amy that you kept for Sarah? Like, how did you balance and how did you switch gears mentally from how to parenting these 2 girls under the same roof? I don't know how I would do that.
It actually, I think that the timing somehow worked out perfectly, that when Amy came along and was ready to play and, have me sing the kid songs and read the kid books, well, that's exactly where Sarah was at that time. So
Good.
I could be silly and singing and giving them art projects that were at the same level for a few years. And Amy then did progress, but it was so Sarah was progressing also, just Amy was progressing faster. It was just this slow, gradual change. But I think what was most humbling was to sort of feel in my body how, because they respond differently to life, and Sarah is more of a screamer when she gets upset, more expressing her, it might be expressing her sadness, but it comes out as screaming, yelling, kicking off her shoes. And so then I brace myself, and my yelling self that I didn't even know I possessed comes out. And Amy is just kind of a softer experience. And when she's sad or upset, it usually comes out as crying, not as yelling. So I was able to be softer with her, and I felt like she could also understand what I was saying. And even now, it's more like hanging out with an adult. I can just talk to her and say, hey, it's time to do your, whatever exercises or whatever homework, and she might be like, "Oh, mom," but then she goes to do it. Whereas if I ask Sarah and she doesn't want to do the thing, I see her start to like, she likes to press her hand into her chin as a way to regulate. Like she's trying to keep it together that she doesn't want to do this thing, but then she still might yell and whine about not wanting to
Yeah.
do the thing. And I remember one moment because this was also around bedtime. So years ago, Sarah would often get out of bed and want to stay up, and it would be hard to get her back in bed, and she'd be yelling and screaming about it. And Amy didn't really do that much, and was easier about bedtime. But there was one night, my husband and I were sitting on the couch. You know, we think the kids are in bed, we're watching TV, and we hear footsteps. And I feel my whole body brace because I'm getting ready for the fight with Sarah. That's like, oh, this is not what I want for my evening. And she's going to yell. And then it was Amy. And my whole body just let go. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that is so humbling. Why can't I be softer and assume that things could go easily with Sarah? So I think that's actually been my biggest journey, is to keep figuring out how to stay centered in myself and soft myself, and trust that even if Sarah yells, it doesn't mean I did something wrong in whatever I asked her to do, which I think is usually where I go. So then my anger is coming from like a defensiveness and a protectiveness about myself. And if I can just be soft and confident, then I can let her scream and I can be there. And it doesn't become a two-person volcano, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. For Amy's sake, when was she starting to understand Sarah and understand how Sarah lives and how she operates? When did Amy kind of clue into all this, and what's their relationship like? I'm really curious to know how they grow up together.
Yeah. Well, I think I remember when Amy was pretty little, like probably 2, she clearly didn't know that Sarah was any different from anybody. And that was the beauty. Like, they could be in the tub together, and, you know, all the adults around Sarah would always be waiting to tell that Sarah was ready for something or asking permission or whatever. Amy would pick up a little squeezy squirty toy and squirt it straight in Sarah's face. And we'd be like, oh my gosh. And Sarah would crack up and play back. So it was really great that Amy was like full on kid playfulness, not protecting Sarah in any way. And I think it was important that the adults were respecting Sarah and trying to read her signals. And then I'd say, gosh, I would think by the time Amy started kindergarten or even before that, she kind of was starting to know. And she certainly witnessed the volunteers coming to play with Sarah. She witnessed how we were with Sarah, which I think set her up to be this incredible individual who gives so much space to everyone she encounters in the world to be who they are, with whatever unique challenges they might have. And I can't imagine her coming to that maybe if she didn't have Sarah as her sister. That said, so sometimes Amy is the best for interacting with Sarah, helping her with something. She can really sometimes know what Sarah needs and how to play, how to talk to her. And boy, sometimes they fight. And I know siblings fight. And Sarah can still win in a wrestling match, even though she's like a foot shorter than Amy, but she's strong, and she can get really upset about things that Amy might do. Like if she's in a space or playing with a certain thing, Sarah can get territorial about it. Whereas if it's me, she probably won't care. But with Amy, she might get very upset. And then that creates a dynamic that is hard for Amy and frustrating. And I'd say leading up to the pandemic, they were really clashing more with each other. And especially, I was still needing to pick Amy up from school, and Sarah was coming with me. And if Amy had had anything stressful at school, it was going to come out at Sarah for just existing and being who she was and how she was, and like so much upset. And then with the pandemic, all of a sudden we're just all at home, and they came back to playing together more and doing crafts together and bonding. And Amy was helping Sarah with her homework, and that was really helpful. And I don't think they ever went back to as much of a clash as it had been. And they're sort of hardly ever seeing each other these days in terms of school schedules and after school activities. Like that we have dinners together and sometimes rides to places. So they do interact and they still sometimes fight about like who gets to sit in the front first. But Amy tends to be the one to be the accommodating, flexible one because she's not going to scream about it. And yet sometimes I feel like, oh, I should actually push on Amy's behalf. No, Amy gets to sit in the front this time, and Sarah can have her upset and deal with that. And this is good to work on flexibility for everyone. And they do still play. They do occasionally play together because they're both big hams. Like, I mean, if you met my husband also, you would see, like, we're all just ridiculous goofs sometimes. And so I love that I can have these two teenagers, and when a song comes on that they love, they both just like break into dancing around the kitchen counter. Like, that's awesome. Or Sarah might say something and we all crack up. I think we were talking the other day about Sarah's new love of computer mice. And so she's still talking about it. Right. And last night at dinner, she was like, we didn't get to play with the computer mouse in the library. And I think Amy said, oh, well, what did you do in the library? And Sarah said, read a book. And Amy said, what was the book about? And Sarah said, a computer mouse, which of course it wasn't, but we just all just cracked up. So I think we still have really good bonding moments, and Sarah and Amy clearly care about each other and love each other. And if either of them is sad about something, the other tends to go, especially Amy will go and get Sarah's favorite stuffed animals. But Sarah, last night, Amy got a little scrape from our cat, and Sarah wanted to help with the Band-Aids. And I thought that was really sweet.
Nice. The one thing too, I guess, would be, as a parent, we all have to manage time with our kids. We want to give them equal time. Now, Sarah requires more time. Obviously, she needs help. She needs somebody with her for that. You've had great people come into your house to help, which I think is amazing. I don't know if a lot of parents would even think of doing that. They think they have to do it all on their own. But how do you balance time for Amy equal to somewhat what the time that you invest in Sarah? Like, I wouldn't want Amy to grow up feeling like she got kind of the leftovers of the family, kind of like when we have time for Amy, and we're with Sarah a lot of the time. How do you balance the time requirements for the two girls differently?
I think in the full-on Sarah Rise years, that was actually easier than if I had not been running a program for Sarah because of all the volunteers, so that then Amy was getting a lot of time where I was not focusing on Sarah because I had someone else with Sarah. So I was able to focus on Amy. Or if I was with Sarah, I had someone else giving really loving, attentive time to Amy, which I think is remarkable. I don't know how I would have done that if it was just me at home with the two of them all the time. And now it is a little bit of like, okay, we always switch who sits up front, like on the way to a place, one of them at the front, on the way back, the other, and now you get to be the DJ, and then they're sort of closer to me.
Oh, the DJ.
And when Amy has a day off from school, even though she does not need me at home, I will clear my calendar to make sure that I'm at home, and we go out for breakfast or lunch together. We used to do that for her half days from school, and her school had a lot more half days than Sarah. So there's that. And I think it's also, that is where it's really helpful to have two parents, and that my husband and I can sort of trade who is doing something special with which kid.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where Amy lands in life. Growing up in this home and great parents, having Sarah, I can just see her some kind of service leaning or support person or something to do with helping people, just because she's grown up in a home that's demonstrated so much love and care and compassion. I think their kids are a product of their environment, right? What they see, they kind of become as they turn into adults. Really curious to see where Amy ends up in all of this as well, as well as Sarah. But
I am
the
curious
two of them,
too.
right?
That's right. Yes.
It's very interesting. Okay, so for the parents that are listening, and maybe they have, like my sister, she has two daughters who have autism, and I know when she first found out, she didn't know what to do, and she felt completely not capable of even understanding what's ahead of her as a parent when she found out. So let's talk, Jennifer, to the people that are listening that have recently found out that their children have autism or are on the spectrum to whatever degree that is, and they feel inadequate. They don't feel like they have the tools and the resources. From your perspective, through the book, which is a great companion, what can we say to that parent today to kind of encourage them that their dreams are possible? There's a way to make this work. From your perspective, let's talk to that parent. What do you want to say to them?
A few different things. One is that you as a parent know your kid and love your kid more than anyone else ever can, aside from other family members possibly. And so I think a lot of times, especially when you get a new diagnosis, like, oh, you're just deferring to specialists because you don't know, of course, and that's what they're there for. They are there to help. But it was a really huge shift for me and for Sarah when I got the training to say, oh, I am the team leader now. And here's the program I want to do. And I know Sarah and I know what she's interested in. And now I know how to work with her more effectively towards language. And I'm not feeling weighed down by guilt because I had been. I had felt like I needed to work super hard to somehow erase the fact that she had any challenges and make it so that no one would ever have known. But because I was feeling weighed down by overwhelm and guilt and how do I get her to eat enough and all of that, a lot of the time I was with her, I was just kind of making it through the moments and not engaging her or working with her because that felt too hard. And once I felt more confident in me and that I didn't have to do it perfectly, but I shifted my own thinking about me and about her to say, oh, just because she's 4 and she has not talked yet does not mean she won't eventually talk. Just because today she's not able to do this particular skill doesn't mean anything about tomorrow. And I had to really expand my timeline and say, with any given skill, of course we didn't know for sure, but to switch to maybe it's a when, not if, but that might be years and years beyond when the typical books might say your kid will do whatever. So Sarah walked when she was 3 and started talking when she was 4. And so I guess I want parents to be kind to themselves and gentle and to let, if you are a parent out there who has a kid and you just got the diagnosis or you just had a moment where you are feeling like the worst parent ever, to let yourself go into that black hole of feelings and the feelings you don't even want to acknowledge because you think I am the worst person in the world for having these thoughts about my child. You have to let yourself feel them and get them out. Otherwise, they keep hanging on. It's like a cape that won't let go. But if you actually just let yourself face into them, acknowledge them, then you can sort of let them go and move on. Because I certainly had thoughts that I am not proud of, feeling so overwhelmed and just so wishing that something could be different about Sarah, and then feeling like the worst mom in the world. But I had to just let that get out. So I highly recommend a good cry on the kitchen floor, because I see crying kind of as not as the moment of hurt, but as the shedding the moment of hurt. Kind of like if you get a stomach bug and you throw up and then you feel better, crying is like an emotional throwing up. Like you just got to get it out and then you feel better.
Yeah. It's like kind of like a pressure valve, when everything's like getting really, really, you just let a little of the pressure out.
Yeah.
Right. And you can kind of bring it back down. Yeah. I find that to be the case. the other part, I guess, too, would just be the whole comparison thing. As we talked about on Living the Next Chapter, you're seeing other families and you see their children developing, and then you start comparing it to your family, and you're like, wait a minute, why is my child different than that child? And then other parents looking at your family going, why is Sarah different than my child? We're both the same age, right? And then you're getting into this whole thing. And now you have other external forces. You have your own internal forces you're dealing with, right? But then you have external forces where people they think maybe in good faith that they're trying to help you, but some of their words can be quite hurtful and not supportive. And so how does a parent deal with that? Because maybe this diagnosis is new for you, but you don't know how you fit in the social aspect of school and life and community and family and neighbors and all that. How did you balance all of that as well? Early days with Sarah.
In the days that I really, really kept praying for a miracle, that things would just suddenly shift, my mom said, well, maybe the miracle or the healing would be a shift in your own perspective.
Oh,
and
Mom.
And I feel like that was really true. I mean, certainly I wished for a magic wand to make everything easier, but I really did come to a different understanding in myself of how to love her as she is without needing her to be anyone different. And it was kind of like building a muscle or exercising an ability to flip a curtain one way or the other of how was I looking? Where was I looking? If I was looking at all the other kids who were born at the same time,
Right.
and we used to be in a mom group together and they're doing all these things, then it was like being left behind on a road and like the dust is blowing as everyone else has left. And it was like, but if I could just turn and just look at Sarah and be like, oh my gosh, but she did a new thing today.
Right.
Then I could
Nice.
feel so good and so happy and not be worrying about it. And I still have to practice that today and realize I have that choice. Yes, I can look at the other people who are in her school program for kids who need extra help and realize that Sarah needs more help than they do.
Right.
And then I think, okay, wait, but let me remember last night, she basically brought the house down with her comment of reading a book about a computer mouse. And she has such flexible creativity and imagination. If I can just enjoy that and not fall into the trap of needing her to fit into whatever somehow we think society needs people to be, then I can be more present and really recognize that I think what most of us want in our life for ourselves and our kids is to make a difference in the world and be happy. And Sarah already makes a difference in the world and brings joy and happiness to so many people that I think, well, wait, isn't that what we're trying to get? Like, maybe she's already done.
Right.
She's already a success story.
Yeah. Right. I love that. Being that this is Dad's Space, as we kind of wrap up here, Jennifer, I really appreciate you being here. Let's talk to the husbands, the dads, on what our partner, our wife, needs in these moments, how we can be a supportive couple together, maybe some tips from you and from your husband on what worked. If there's something that didn't work, that'd be good to know as well. But how the two of you together can be a support for each other. There's dads listening, and maybe they feel equally inadequate, that they don't have the tools to do this. How can the two, husband and wife, work together in the home to be a support to each other? What kind of things should we be asking of our dads, our husbands?
Time and space to process feelings with a loving, attentive ear. So a lot of times I don't need my husband to solve a situation. I just need someone there to listen as I cry and rant and rave and say how confused I am, or I don't know what to do, and that I'm feeling really terrible. And if my husband just listens, then usually I come through it and I'm like, okay, all right, ready to go back in the ring. Like, I'm good. Or he can offer a perspective where he's not as judgmental of me as I am. You know, I could be feeling like a terrible mom because I didn't pick up on whatever was going on for Sarah. And Carl, my husband, would be like, wait, but you figured out to go to these doctors and you took her to these doctors and now we do know what's going on. So I was there beating up on myself for not figuring it out sooner. And he was sitting there marveling that I had figured it out to the point that we had.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay. And I think one feature that is really great about Carl, which I don't know if everyone has because I'm not this way, is to be a cool cucumber. Basically, like the rest of the household, we can have really big feelings. And it can, especially me and Sarah, it can be like fireworks.
Yeah.
And Carl will just come over and be like, okay, let's bring the temperature down. And like, and he can listen to Sarah, he can listen to me, he can listen to Amy, and with love and with humor, but he's not getting himself feeling defensive as if he needed to do something differently or solve the situation. He's just giving us some space and helping us remember that we love each other. But I think the biggest is that he is able to not take it personally, even if I am possibly blaming him for something. And that's a remarkable skill because I think most of us, when being given feedback, especially if it's maybe not the kindest in the delivery, will get defensive. But to be able to say, okay, no, I'm going to see beyond this to the good person or the person who's hurting, and we're just going to let this storm blow past, and then we will address the situation.
Okay, that's really good. I like it. So yeah, as you listen to this, Dad Space people, you want more information about the book, Jennifer was on to talk about that in Living the Next Chapter. We get really into the book, and it's a great episode. It's a great compliment to our conversation today. So go over and head over and listen to that. That'll be in the show notes as always, so you can hear more from Jennifer and the book. But Jennifer, for the dads listening, let's talk about the website and where to get the book, and maybe kind of wrap us up maybe with a love letter to parents who, like you, are loving some amazingly beautiful kids and wanting to do their best as parents. We'll get your love letter to parents, but tell us about the website and again, a little bit more about the book, and then let's wrap up.
Yeah, my website is watchingsarahrise.com. It has links to many places to buy the book. You can get it anywhere books are sold. If it's a small bookstore, they probably need to order it for you. Or you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop. It's also available as an audiobook or an e-reader. And in terms of the love letter to parents, I would say to know that whatever it is, it can be a gift, even if you feel like this is the hardest thing you've ever done. But you can rise to that challenge. You really can. You really, really can. Even if you have moments where you think you are the worst parent ever and you just were the person that you swore you would never be with your child, you are both so resilient and back, and you can apologize to your kid and they can hear that, and you can come back together and connect with love and snuggles.
Excellent. All the best to your family, Jennifer, and excited to see where you go next as a parent and where Sarah ends up in life and where Amy ends up in life. And we got to be introduced to Carl as well, which is a bonus. So there you go. So Carl, thank you so much for allowing me to have time with Jennifer. But thank you, Jennifer, for being part of this, sharing your story. You've been very transparent. And I think a lot of parents listening to this can really benefit from your book and your story. And I'm sure that if somebody had a question for you and they reached out, you would be glad to answer and connect with somebody listening to the show. So please do that, everyone, if you want to reach out. And I'm asking everyone, like we do on Living the Next Chapter, when you buy Jennifer's book, to leave a great review as well, because that'll help more parents to know more about Jennifer's story, about Sarah, and how this book has helped you. It's going to help more people buy that book and help more people. So please leave a great review. Jennifer, again, thank you so much. I hope we continue conversations, and thank you for all your time. I love having you here.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening to Dad Space. Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That's a great sign to wherever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, fill in the blank, that this was a good podcast to send people to. So simply by listening to this point of the podcast, you're helping the show grow. So good on you. Thanks for helping us grow Dad Space. If you want to help us fill our cups over at Dadspace. Head over to dadspace.ca. Dadspace.ca, simple website, right? Dadspace.ca. You can fill up our coffee cup, which helps us then to keep moving forward with the podcast, and use our Buy Me a Coffee link over at dadspace.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for sharing. Because the more people, more dads we can help, the better. We're all here to help each other grow in community. That's what it's all about. And without you, podcast is pointless. There's no reason to do any of this. So you being here means everything. See you at dadspace.ca. Take care.